Sniffy sniff. Are we walking or what? Good morning, guys and gals. Backwaters and backroads here. Let's try to do a 10-minute-ish Pontifications in Paradise. We are in Carabel, Florida, as of the making of this little video. We are waiting to cross the Gulf, which is kind of a big deal on the Great Loop, and especially when you have a boat like mine, you got to pick a really good day, and it looks like Friday is going to be that day, and today is Wednesday. So we're just kind of hanging around Carabel. I've been here before and trying to walk streets I've never walked, and we've actually found some. The thing I wanted to talk about this time, one of 1,000 things that I could probably pick out of a hat, would be how, and tell me if you guys agree or disagree, got different thoughts, whatever. Living on a boat is like living on an island. It's like living on your own island. Now, my island, for example, is only 30 by 8'6". Wavy's trying to trip me as usual. So I have a little island, little floating island. And what are the pros and cons of that? I think there's a lot more pros than cons of living on a boat. I suppose depending on your value system and the things you like and don't like. The things I like about it are, I tend to be of the notion that it's hard to live in society. I don't know how else to put it. It's like, I've always been a kind of an outsider, and it's nice to be able to withdraw from society. Typically speaking, more people, more problems is kind of, one of the mottos that I have found to be true. I love one-on-one, and maybe a small group of like-minded people, but the maddening crowds is what they call it. I think the Bible even talks about it in various ways, are always exhausting to me, and I also, I like walking by myself all day with my dog, and stuff like that. So that's probably my temperament. And so living on a boat really lends to that. And then, and you can also live within a congested area, like it's just a city, like for example, in a few days, God willing, we're going to cross the Gulf without incident, and we'll be in Crystal River, Florida, which is not a big city, but it's not a small place either. I don't know what the population is, but it's got everything, you could ever want. And we're going to be able to anchor out in Kings Bay, and it's right there. It's just like, it's just right across the water. One thing that comes with your own island is a moat. You're always surrounded by your own moat. And there's a reason why castles and kings and kingdoms throughout history, often had moats, because they're very effective in keeping out what you don't want coming into your little world, but you can always lower the drawbridge and you can allow in what you do, So living on a boat, living on your own little island, is like having your own moat, but you don't have to be a king or a queen or have a kingdom to do it. It's your own little kingdom, This book that I just finished, Riverman, had a lot of good quotes in it. He's doing her business there again, always. The author of Riverman quoted Bernard Montessier, which is one of my heroes, the fella that sailed around the world by himself, won the first ever, I don't know if it was it was a contest in 1969, I think. And he was just a legend, a French legend. And Bernard Montessier, I'll link something below. He has a great book called The Sea Vagabond's World. And he went and found a South Pacific atoll in like French Polynesia somewhere that didn't even have a name. And he dug a well by hand and lived there for many, many years with a woman and kids, I think, too. But anyways, his kind of disgruntled ex-wife said something when she was talking about Bernard Montessier. She said, being a captain on your own boat in a way is like being a little god, like you're like a god. Now she didn't, she had a negative connotation to that, like like Bernard Montessier was like a little god on his boat, and I get where she's coming from on that, and none of us are God at the end of the day. But I thought about that. I'm like, man, does that apply to me and how I see it? And I'm like, well, this would be my reinterpretation of what she was saying. Is yes, I wouldn't use the word God. I would just say you get to be your own master of your domain. It's your own little kingdom. It's your own little island kingdom in a way. And what's wrong with that? Like why, especially a man, why wouldn't you want that? To be kind of the king of your own domain. You're making your own decisions. Now you're responsible for it. You never can separate responsibility and I suppose, what am I trying to say? Like you can never take responsibility out of this mix. It's pretty much the main ingredient. You got to, when you are going to live on your own island, you better be very resourceful, and you're going to be responsible for whatever happens to that island and yourself and anyone that might come on it. So, but and a lot of people, whether they realize it or not, in this modern age, they're trying to avoid responsibility, like the real kind. That's a big subject. But so I guess I'd put a positive spin on it. It's like, okay, I get to be the king of my own domain. Now we got boarded by the Coast Guard like a week ago, and so your little kingdom can be invaded by people in uniforms and guns real easy, with boats bigger than yours and faster than yours, and that's just the way it's going to be. But so far, if you're not doing anything really stupid, like drinking and boating, and you have all your safety gear and stuff, there's really not a lot they can do to your little kingdom. They'll just come. That's what they did to us. Just checked our fire extinguisher and whether we had life preservers and stuff. One thing I failed on, I didn't have a throwable, and they just gave me a warning and said get one as soon as you can. I said yeah, no problem. So piece of cake. I mean, there's more to it. You'll see it on the main channel eventually here when we get to that video. But I like that boats and living on a boat does that. Is it allows me to be independent to a certain extent. Now, living like on a sailboat where you're sailing the world, like Bernard Montessier did and many others, it takes that to an extreme. I probably will never get there in reality. I don't know, we'll see. But I kind of like just how I do it, on a houseboat, a shanty boat, and staying in America, North America. There's plenty to see here, and you do it in a economical way, and it's really, sorry, just making sure we're not getting hit by cars here. It's better than a sailboat in my opinion, so another subject. But okay, the point of this little pontification is, okay, what would be some drawbacks? What would be the cons of living on your own little island / boat? Well, you always got to cross that moat. You got to have a little dinghy or something, to get across. And, meaning you can't just jump out of your chair and walk out the door and go somewhere. I mean, it takes some planning, which, again, is no big deal to me. But, just today when we came to shore, I had to, load stuff up and make sure I have everything and, put in the boat and row or kayak or start the motor or whatever, So there are a few more steps, but if you're not in a hurry, then what's the big deal? You've got to do the same thing if you're going to go jump in your car and go somewhere. So not really a big deal. If you're anchoring, I guess there's not a lot of cons. I'm not going to, maybe you can think of some cons living on your boat, pros and cons. Put them below. You're not going to get too many from me, but, back to the pros is like, I've thought oftentimes, trying to buy some cheap land down here in the South, Alabama or Mississippi or Florida even. And then I think about it more and I'm like, well, I got something even better, in my opinion. I can just drop anchor in front of paradise. And when I kind of grow tired of this version of paradise, I pull up the anchor, I move for a couple days, and I drop anchor again, and I'm in a different paradise. There's a variety involved, and it's cheap. And then when the weather changes and it's starting to open up in the Northland, which I love even more than this, you just throw it on a trailer and you take it home. So there's so few drawbacks. And then when you have a flat bottom boat or a shallow draft boat, like you're seeing on our channel, I would argue that you have even more options, and there's even more pros to this whole scenario. You can beach it. You can pull right up on a beach. You can float in places that other boats can't even get into, So just further kind of claiming a place for yourself just by default because you're the only one that can get in there, I've said this for years, ever since I got into shanty boating, was if your boat drafts 2 feet or less, you're expanding the places you can go by you're doubling it, tripling it, quadrupling it when you're out here in the riverways and the waterways of America. I promise you that. There are so many places that are just 2 or 3 feet deep, and they're vast. They're entire lakes and floodplains and stuff. Of course, do your research. There's tides and things like that you got to consider. But generally speaking, when you're drafting a couple feet, you push it up to 3 and it starts to go the other way. But that's just one of those many benefits of having a boat like you see on our channel. And why I'm not really in a hurry or interested, I'm going to turn around here, to get into a sailboat or something. If you're going offshore, that's a totally different subject. And yes, a sailboat is where it shines, But okay, guys. So what were the recap quickly? What was the point of this pontification in paradise? Living on a boat, in a way, is like getting to be the king of your own island kingdom. It might be a small island. I would recommend you keep it small because they keep it simple. But you're your own little king of your own domain. And that's going to get more and more valuable in the future, in my opinion, with the prevailing winds of how America and the world in general is going. And it's going to get, it's going to get hard. It's going to get more expensive to try to do it on land. There are going to be restrictions and things they're going to try to do to make it hard, even on the water. But so far, I've said this for years also, moving onto the water is like leaving 9 out of 10 problems behind. You're going to see it as leaving it on the shore when you get out on the water and you go onto a boat. So, okay, guys, I'd love to hear what you think about this. And Wavy's trying to. This is what she does. Here, I'm going to turn the phone around. If I'm not going the direction she wants to go, she sandbags it and just barely stays ahead of me. I mean, she's small enough that I can just drag her on the leash. But she tries to trip me. I mean, she'll wrap this up right here around my legs. If I wasn't careful, I'd just go flat on my face while I'm making these videos. So, okay, guys. we will see you over in backwaters. Thanks for watching. Catch you later.